So we'll continue with our current liabilities. This is the current portion of long-term debt. And the thing to keep in mind in classifying things is that if you're going to use current assets to pay something off, then it has to be classified as current. And if it doesn't, you can classify it as long-term. And that is, if it uses current assets or you create another current liability to pay it off, then it has to be classified as current. So we're talking about balance sheet classifications here. Okay, so a company has a 15-year mortgage payable on its building. Maybe the whole mortgage is $600,000, but $40,000 is coming due within the next year because you make your monthly mortgage payments. So the company would report $40,000 of that $600,000 mortgage as current, and the rest would be reported as long-term. So the current maturities of long-term debt you report as current liabilities. The rest you report as long-term. Okay, so now there's a few complications to this, as there always are, it seems. One is you classify the current portion of long-term debt as long-term. In other words, you can classify it as long-term if it's going to be paid off by an already accumulated long-term fund. In other words, it's not going to use current assets to pay it off. Or it will be retired or refinanced by you issuing more long-term debt. In other words, no current assets to pay it off. Or it will be converted to common stock, which is by definition long-term. So you can classify the current portion of long-term debt as long-term as long as any of those conditions are met. And the basic thing is you're not using current assets or current liabilities to satisfy it. Now, on the other hand, looking at it the other way, if you have long-term debt, you have to classify it as short-term if it's callable on demand. In other words, if it's possible that the lender can say, yeah, we want you to repay that right now, then it has to be classified as short-term because it could use current assets to pay it off. So how could this happen? You could have a long-term note, and a lot of times there are provisions in the financing agreement that says, okay, you have to keep a certain cash balance in our bank at all times, or your note will be in default if you miss 2 payments in a row, things like that. And so if any of if the company's in violation of anything in the financing agreement, then it has to be classified as short-term, because if you're in violation, that means the bank can call in the entire amount now. Okay, so the basic idea, if current assets are going to be or are likely to be used to pay something off, classify it as current. Okay, that's about it. Current portion of long-term debt.